And this is actually taken from a referee report on another paper, where I was using many years ago response time, and just read it. The second flaw is that the study does not measure participants' engagement time with the game. There is no control over what participants are doing. Participants can take a break, to take a mobile phone call, to text someone, to browse the web, to eat pizza, to have a coffee, etc., and yet response times are presented as indicative of the time taken to achieve a decision, etc., etc. I love this because of many reasons. Number one, this guy thinks that if we put somebody in the lab, then we know what he is doing. I'm sure we don't. Namely, I'm sure that most subjects in the lab think about their homework, about their lab story, about their worries, about whatever, and we don't have any control about what really they do. Number two, wow.
That's the referee.
Number two, I would like to claim the opposite. That actually it's much better that people will eat pizza during the time that they are answering the questions. Because this is the real decision makers, when they make decisions, eat pizza. And if not pizza, they eat something else, or they drink coffee, and they are engaged in telephone calls, etc., etc. That's the natural thing. It's the actually not is that people are sitting in a lab and making decisions. Look at this picture. This is General Eisenhower in Korea. He visited Korea before he was elected. He was probably making a lot of decisions in his mind. He was eating, I think, spaghetti. It's not pizza, but still it's the same. Or this is actually from War and Peace. That's one of the most important decisions in human history were done, at least according to this book, when the guy was chewing a chicken. So again, it's not pizza, but unless there is some correlation between eating pizza and choosing dove or oak in a chicken game, then I don't see actually, which is not very likely conjecture, then I think that it's very fine if people eat pizza during the time that they make decisions. Let me conclude. Well, what do I take from this? Let me be very careful. I don't want to say that I was proved in some sense the usefulness of this typology. I would like to say that I like this typology because I find it natural. I find it natural, namely, I think that indeed we use this typology. It's not just when I look for, some people look for typologies because they want to predict. I don't want to predict. Actually, I just want to talk about typologies which are natural. I think that these typologies that I'm talking about being more contemplative and instinctive is very natural. If we would chat about somebody and say something that is instinctive guy, you would understand what I mean. But I would like to be very careful with the interpretation of these results. In general, I don't believe experiments, including not mine. Or let's say I'm skeptical about the results. And I am skeptical also about my own results. Namely, I would not want to see it as more as some sort of a hint for that there is a need for much, much more research to establish the contemplative as a good prediction. I don't think that there is any need for any experiments to establish this typology as a sort of a good typology for conducting or for composing a new theoretical model. That's something that I'm working on. But I think that to persuade people that there is some traces of truth, or traces of truth for this typology in life, in the type of conclusion that people are looking usually, namely finding correlations, etc. I think that I would take my own result with a grain of caution, and I would say there is definitely a need to much, much more than what I did in order to establish the conclusion that the CI is a very useful, in some sense, measure to predict behavior in other situations. Thank you.
We don't have a lot of time, but perhaps one question from here, or how do we go to the other room? Okay. Okay.
Did you ever do this with problems in classic kind of decision theoretical violations of rationality problems like the LA paradox, the Ellsberg paradox?
Yes, that's the previous paper. So in the previous paper, what I did was analysis, but actually in the previous paper, which I published 2 or 3 years ago, what I did was a similar analysis, but I was using then not this typology, but the second typology, the GI typology. The idea about the contemplative index that I did only here.
One more?
By the way, being contemplative in games, regarding games, is not a very good prediction about being more contemplative in a sense in action, in decision problems.
So in ultimatum games, there is in some sense no cost of contemplation in the sense that it's easy to solve, which is where you find most of the high correlation. But in games that are otherwise a little difficult to solve, such as the 180 game, the correlation is relatively low. Does that sort of
No, I don't think that it's connected only with that, because I didn't show you all the games, but there is, well, I cannot. But if you look at the paper, you will find there are some other games. There is a particular game of 4x4 matrix game, which is described, where actually it's quite difficult to solve it.
Right.
And nevertheless, you get results which are very clean. So I don't think that it's connected only with the difficulty to solve.
Okay, anybody from the other rooms who want to ask Ariel a question? Okay.
No questions.
Okay, anybody from the other rooms who want to ask a question to Arya?
No questions.
I don't think they can hear me, so they can hear you? Okay. Okay, so perhaps we're kind of out of time as well. So thank you, Arya.
Thank you.
And,